Okay, just about ready to start laying some track on this new section of my layout, but I need another turnout. No problem. Let's build one. Hello, welcome back to the Whistlestop Railroad. This is Poor Man's Trains. I'm your host, Bob Martin, and today we are talking turnouts and how you can build them a heck of a lot cheaper than buying them. Now, turnouts are the lifeblood of any railroad. Whether you're just having a passing siding, or if you're building a yard, then slow it back down, or if you just have an industry that you need to make deliveries to. Unless you're like my son and just like watching trains going round and round in circles, you're going to need a turnout. Now, every manufacturer of track has their own series of turnouts. Some have multiple series of turnouts, and they have different code track, different size turnouts. They got curves, they got Ys, and the cheapest among them usually start at around $15 a pop. Now, if you only need 2 or 3, that's not that bad, but if you start building a yard and all of a sudden you need 8 or 10, it starts adding up pretty quick. Not to mention that not every situation has an off-the-shelf solution, and that's what led me to make my first turnout. I had a curved turnaround with a 22-inch radius track, needed a turnout to come off of that. I didn't feel like completely reworking that entire section of track, so I made my own just to fit within that specific radius. So, it doesn't cost that much. It's actually pretty fun. Let's dive into it, and I'll show you what you need. So the basic materials that you're going to need for this project are some PC board, as well as some regular wood for ties, and some rail. Not to mention your trusty NMRA gauge. Vitally, vitally important that you have one of these. This will make this work or not. Now, for rail, I am using just a piece of Atlas Flex Track. It's actually super flex track. Any piece of flex track will do. This actually happens to be a used piece of flex track. That's perfectly fine. We're going to basically strip it out. These plastic ties can actually be used and make sure we get the spacing set for the ties once we get it on, as well as sometimes holding the end ties in place. For PC board, you can buy ties already made up and cut to length in proper strips, or you can do what I did and just buy some bulk on eBay and cut them up yourself. A note on the PC board. Now, I went to eBay and picked up this little auction here, a 5-pack of 60 thousandths thick PC board. All you gotta do is cut it to the length. Pretty cool. Shipped all the way from China on a slow boat with a bad propeller that got held up by tidal waves, customs, and politics. The estimated delivery time was between February 1st and mid-March. After waiting for a couple of weeks, kind of got irritated. I said, okay, let me see what else is out there. So I went back to eBay, and I found this. Shipped all the way from New Hampshire, from a great seller. I'm going to try to throw up his eBay username right here. Beautiful product, much better quality than the cheap stuff from China. I spent about $2.73 for this stuff. I spent about $7.50 for this, and I got twice the product, and it's way better. And definitely recommend doing a little homework. Don't wait a month and a half to get stuff from China just because you're saving $2. Check out this guy. He makes a great product. The PC board can be cut just using a regular hobby knife, scoring it along a straight line, and then snapping the board to shape. You can do this. It does take a while. It does dull your knife. Can be done. I'm using a bandsaw simply because I happen to have one available to me.
There is no shame in making use of a mechanical advantage.
Of course, you're going to need a soldering iron as well. I recommend a good quality soldering iron for this project. I will not be using a good quality soldering iron because mine died on me, unfortunately. But any soldering iron will do as long as it can get the rail hot enough to connect to the boards. Now, the next thing you want to do is build yourself a jig. Just take a piece of plywood, this happens to be MDF, and get a printout, a template of the turnout. Now, I happen to download this from proto87.com. They're also available from Fast Tracks or any layout design software that you can print out one-to-one typically have this option as available. You can just put out the turnout, print it out one-to-one. When you print these out, you do want to be careful of the rail placement. You want to double check your gauge. Once you get it printed out, you may have to enlarge or decrease your printout slightly depending on what one that you use. Just use some spray adhesive, put it down on the board, drill some holes, use some small dowels. You could use toothpicks. I happen to have these little tiny dowels that I'm using, and they work perfect. This is just to hold the rail in place as you're getting everything built. You're also going to want to build yourself a little jig down here to build your frog. Now, this happens to be for a number 6 layout, which means that from the point of divergence, it takes 6 inches to get 1 inch away from this straight line. That makes it a number 6. 8 inches takes 8, or number 8 turnout takes 8, a number 4 turnout takes 4, and so on. What you do, you draw your line, set your little wood guides in place, slide your rails in to form your point where they come together. Just cut them, shave them, solder them together. Same thing for your closure rails. Lay them right in here, spread out as needed to form the closure points. Pretty straightforward. So once we have the stock rails cut, we come to what I think is the most important part of making a turnout, and this may be a little controversial, and that is going to be in the points rails. and where they come to meet the stock rail. Now, a lot of people are going to say it's up in the frog, and I would call that the second most important. The first most important, I think, is going to be this relief cut right here on the back of the stock rail that allows the points to smoothly blend right into it. And let me show you what I mean. All right, here's another turnout that I made. And you can see right here, it's a little bit of a gap. It's not too much. There's a little bit of an indent in the stock rail that allows that point to slide right up in. When the wheels come through, they pick that right up and slide off in that direction. When this is not set just right, you don't have that indent, you tend to get a little bit of a gap right there. And the wheels will catch and derail or go the wrong direction just about every time. So you really want to make sure you get that little bit of spacing right so that your points rails have plenty of room to climb right up into your stock rail. The next piece I want to solder in is the throw bar. Now, you want to take care when you put in these two that you have plenty of room for the throw bar to be able to move back and forth very freely. I've got a couple of very thin strips of wood that I'll put on either side of it just to make sure we're spaced evenly apart. And you'll also notice that I went ahead and scribed, see if I can get the camera to zoom in on this. I've scribed in a couple of lines just to help isolate polarity. We'll do the rest of the ties at a later time, but this one's a little more difficult to get to, and so I wanted to do this before we started. Anyway, once we get it in place, once again, take our trusty NMRA gauge, hold the points in place as we solder everything in. So once we get the throw bar done, there's only a few more PC ties we need to throw in. The rest we can fill up with wood ties. We want to be able to cut out the frog so we can isolate it, whether you do electric frog or dead frog, whatever you want to do. I like hitting the ends just to make sure that we got a good solid connection on both ends, and then a few more down through the middle. And so there you have your basic completed turnout. Now the last thing we need to do is just do some isolation work. Obviously we don't want to have connectivity going straight across the entire turnout, so we'll just take a little Dremel here, score across the PC ties, and then isolate the frog as well, and then we're basically good to go. And so there you have it, a scratch-built turnout made from a piece of FlexTrack and bulk PC board that I got off of eBay. The last step will be to put in the wood ties, but that can be done at any time. Simply cut them to length and slide them up onto the rails and glue them to the roadbed. I prefer gluing to the roadbed instead of to the rails, as there is much less chance of accidentally gluing the points open or closed. Right now I'm using a simple overspring to hold the points, but eventually I would like to replace those with tortoise motors. So for about $40 worth of materials, I have enough to make about 10 turnouts, depending on the size. 8s take more than 4s, but you get the idea. And I can custom make a turnout to fit just about any situation. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments and I'll do my best to respond. And as always, thanks for watching, and happy railroading!